Hi, this is Shapiro from Astral Connections, and here with me today I have Joshua Shapiro and Katrina Head, and they're coming out in March to talk about the crystals with me, the crystal skulls. And they'll be here the weekend, so there'll be lots and lots of information that you can come out and learn. And we're just going to talk to them right now and see what we can learn before that.
We're always learning.
We're always learning. So Joshua, tell me something. Well, first tell me about you. Tell me about yourself and your life, and
Sure.
you know, just a little bit about where you grew up. And
Okay. Well, I was born in Chicago, and a month after we come will be my 57th birthday.
wow.
So whatever that's worth, I feel like I'm 35. Especially being with this lady here, I feel like I'm 35.
Aww.
I really didn't get involved into spiritual or paranormal matters until after I graduated college, so around 22 years old.
What brought that on, or what experience did you have?
Well, I don't know if I should tell you this or not. I might be a little bit ashamed, but I was going to bars actually and looking just to meet people to go out with, and I started meeting people who had spiritual experiences, and it was like this person was talking about it and then that person was talking about it, and I went, those people don't know each other, what's going on? So I am an Aries, and if your viewers know about Aries, when something comes up that's intriguing or a mystery, we will not
to know more.
right, and we will not allow it to go further until we understand what it was. So I became involved with some spiritual groups in Chicago, and then I think my real the person that I am now came out when I traveled to California on faith, which it was so many years ago I can't even remember exactly.
What do you mean by travel by faith?
I mean, I only had a little bit of money. I had a friend who had a car, and we drove to California from Chicago.
What led you there?
Just to know what the heck was going on in California. So the only contact I really had was my brother, and I think his girlfriend at that time was interested in spiritual things. So she said, come on out. So on the way we met one of the most famous UFO contactees. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name. He was in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. His story basically he was in the military and a UFO landed, and he went inside and he traveled around with it, and he started talking about this story. So we thought that was an auspicious sign of that trip, that we meet, you know, a UFO guy. And then we also saw the book Contact with the Pleiadians, which was by Billy Myers, which was, you know, nobody wasn't sure if he was taking pictures of models or if it was real ships, because it was that clear. So
I watched his interview. It was very intriguing.
Right. So that's pretty much how I started, and I went back to Chicago and I created a book called Journeys of an Aquarian Age Networker, which was based on my traveling on faith from California back to Chicago. And then for the Crystal Skulls, this began in 1983. I went back to California, and I stayed with a friend in San Jose, California, and we went to a metaphysical bookstore across the street from Rosicrucian Park. And my friend, her name was Francois. What was interesting is I felt like she was a mother in the past life, and she actually had a son with my birthday who died. So when you have these kind of synchronicities, you follow them, see where you go. So
especially when they give you that feeling.
Right. So this was in 1983, and she took out pictures of an amethyst crystal skull that probably nobody was familiar with at that time. And then I got a chance to see it, and I just knew, even when I was looking at the pictures, that the crystal skulls are returning to help humanity create world peace. So really, from April of 1983, that's when I called day one of being a crystal skull explorer, shall we say. It has been a never-ending series of travels, research, adventures, writing books. I have no clue how many presentations I've done. I have no clue how many private sessions anymore I've done with crystal skulls. I mean, with Katrina, we started working together in 2009.
I've done a lot since 2009.
Yeah, well, what happened was in 2008, we had the Indiana Jones craziness, and I was living in Holland. So Spirit must have wanted me back in America, because I wasn't planning to stay, and circumstances just work out. I had to stay, so I did more interviews in my life in a short period of time than I ever remember.
Who did you do those interviews with?
The Sci-Fi Channel had a 2-hour documentary that I actually got a credit for as a consultant, and they did an hour interview with me, and we also did some research, but they didn't show any of that. But in a future book, I hope to publish the results of the research that we did with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, which, if you're Canadian, you should know that one. It was in Toronto for many years, till it went to the United States. So
why do they all end up in the U.S.?
Well, they're not all in the U.S. There's actually 10 that we saw. Sorry, we can't say who has this. 10 we saw in Vancouver Island, and of course we have our friends here in British Columbia. Millennium, sorry guys, I think Millennium Power is the name of their company. And they sell a lot of crystal skulls. And they have, what's the name of their?
Amar.
Amar. So that's here in British Columbia. And then you have another lady in British Columbia, Maya, who has Zaba, which is like a 100-pound crystal skull.
Wow.
Except she's in LA at this moment of the filming. So, you know, there have been some things with Canada with crystal skulls. So anyway, after I moved back to Chicago where I was born and I had all this madness go on around the interviews, I started to become bored with Chicago, and I had a chance to visit Atlanta. And I met one of her best friends, and she had a session with me in Atlanta. And actually I remember when we were going out to lunch with another one of her friends, they called her up, but she was busy. Otherwise, in November of 2008, we might have met. But you know, everything happens in the right time, right?
Right. Right time, right
So, after visiting Atlanta, I decided, because there seemed to be a lot of interesting people there and whatever, that I would move there. So, since the only piece of furniture I had at this point, because I was living, you know, in a house where it was a furnished room, was a card table and that was it, a card table. TV came after I moved. I was able to move myself to Atlanta. Eventually I found a place not too far from where she was working at the time. And then we had brief contact via email, and then she decided to come when I was doing my private sessions with crystal skulls. She was sitting across from me, our hearts connected, we recognized each other, and you know, then...
And the story goes from there.
Right, and then we went through different things. She got to go with me to see the Atlantean crystal, they call it an orb now, it's a ball. Atlantean crystal ball found by Dr. Brown, which is a very amazing thing. And then we also...
How big is that one?
Well, it's kind of fits in the palm of your hand. Okay, but it was very powerful. Well, actually, if you come to the presentation, I can allow you to feel the energy, because they placed it in my right hand and it integrated itself there. So wow. I can feel it right now being there. So you might feel it on the video.
Can I?
Yeah, just see what you feel from my hand, because to me it's like white hot right now.
Wow.
Okay, so the orb was placed there, and after he took it off, it was like it was still there. So I've shared that with a lot of people, and a lot of people have felt it. So we went to see that, and we went to see another ancient crystal skull called Max. Which is going to be, well, they're filming this today in the beginning of February, late part of February. It'll be in the Tacoma area. So,
but before I met him, I started working with crystals.
Okay, good.
And,
tell me your story.
Well, my story is I was a paralegal for a law firm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yuck. Sorry.
But a series of events happened where I was waking up and learning just about myself and going within. And so I started working with crystals. I got a table. I set up a healing room. I started doing work on the attorneys. Just a series of events that happened. It was really a great law firm that I worked for.
Can you share maybe one of those events?
Working with the attorneys?
No, the experiences, the spiritual awakenings.
Well, actually this is the first crystal skull, this little pink one, that I started working with. This was a gift.
Right.
The Guardians, the name, didn't receive the name at first. I just knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was doing, if that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
little fellas and ladies have a living consciousness, so and they also work with your inner being, your inner. So when you start working with them and you start holding them and you start meditating with them, and I would sleep with this one, not really knowing what I was doing, a lot of doors opened up in my life. So everything that was in here came out to the external. So
Yeah, it was interesting. Just the other day, and it wasn't a crystal skull. It was a crystal, and then somebody was holding it, and all of a sudden my body started to go towards it. So I can understand what you're talking about a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So each one of our skulls, they each have their own role that they play, like each of us in the world.
Right. So they have a name. They have a personality. They have things they like. They have things they don't like. And they each have a certain way that they work with people. So like if any of your viewers decide that they want to participate in the private sessions that we'll offer with them, then they'll pick which one that resonates, because they have different frequencies. And actually there's one on the table that was not made by a human being.
Oh. And I don't know which one it is, and you're not going to tell me till that weekend, are you?
No, I'm not.
So we have a lot of exciting things to share.
Right.
Okay.
A lot of
So
exciting
that's the
things.
reason why I, as an Aries, appreciate the crystal skulls, because there's always something new going on.
Wow.
And it seems that Spirit is leading us more towards paranormal type of research. And I'm personally interested in direct communication with Spirit. And we have a medium that we're working with who has that in the Seattle area. But I also was told by Spirit, so you hear it first. You're the first public party that I'm announcing this to. They've asked me in this year to do a book about the paranormal through interviews with various mediums and the research that we're doing with the crystal skulls and some personal experiences with past lives.
Wow.
Because we had one last year in Boston that was pretty amazing. So just, it's like every year something else comes up, something new, and it just keeps us really busy.
So, okay, so you had your own passion with crystals, and Katrina had hers, and then how did you guys come together, or how was it the crystals that brought you together?
Well, actually, I believe so for myself.
Yeah.
I started working with crystals and was buying crystals, actually, and I noticed that they had some kind of healing energy. Of course, it's when you're working with a person, you're just the conduit, but the crystal also acts as the conduit. So then the girlfriend that met him first, as she was the catalyst for us meeting, got a crystal skull. And then she gifted me with a crystal skull.
And she also bought a copy of my first book, which wound up with her. And she read it in one night.
Right.
It's wonderful.
But what was interesting is that when she was looking about information about crystal skulls on the internet, she found me before she met
before
me.
I even met him.
So
So Katrina mentioned her first crystal skull. Which one's yours?
this
I have
one,
to ask.
this one right here. It's called
Okay.
Portal de Luz, Portal of Light.
Wow.
It was a gift from an ex-wife in 1999. And I will say, I'll tell you one story about Portal de Luz. I'm very proud of this because it shows that the crystal skulls that are being made by the modern carvers also have the potential to be very powerful and to affect the lives of many people. There was a meeting when I lived in Holland where one of the most well-known Mayan elders was there to help to support a movie about their prophecy of December 21st this year.
This year.
Okay, so now the big debate, is it really everything going to go crazy or whatever? No, it's not. But there will be a lot of changes this year as well.
Might go crazy inside. Maybe
Well,
outside.
Yeah, but the world's not going to be destroyed. Okay, so anyway, as we discussed, the crystal skulls talk with you. So I call him Portal for short, and he calls me Dad. So he said, Dad, when that elder comes around, do not say anything. Because I was going to, go up to him and say, Grandfather, I have a crystal skull, and perhaps you'd like to meet him. But he said, no, don't say anything. So what happened is after the movie was over and people were sitting outside in kind of a little restaurant area with tables, this elder came up And of course he speaks fluent Spanish, and although my Spanish is all right, it's not good enough to understand.
Communicate.
Yeah, and especially because there's a lot of dialects of Spanish, you know, in Central America and South America and so on, even different between that and Spain. So there was a translator there, and the elder said, well, this is a ancestral Mayan crystal skull, you need to return it to us. Now what the elder really was saying is that many of their sacred tools were probably plundered when the Spanish came through Central America and South America. And some of their crystal skulls were obviously taken. And I think they had prophecies about a bearded white man that would come, and here are these bearded white men that come from Spain. So they were a little bit confused.
White man, that sounds familiar.
Right.
Like December,
Why these
like
men,
December 25th familiar.
you know,
though.
right, why these men were taking all their sacred objects and things like that. So they quickly learned that they had to hide their skulls. So essentially what happens is, you know, some of the crystal skulls that are maybe in museum, private hands, could be skulls that, you know, the Europeans came and they took.
Wow.
So he felt that this was one of theirs, and I said, no, I'm sorry, grandfather, this is a skull that was made by a Brazilian carver, and I went to Brazil and I met him. And he didn't believe me. So I had to show him another skull like this one, also made by the same Brazilian carver. And I said, well, look at this one, and he saw the two, and then he was quiet. Now, what happened with Portal de Luz, which was very interesting, in the conference in which I received him as a gift, he was sitting next to a crystal skull called ET, which is also smoky quartz, and considered to be one of the ancient crystal skulls. And I think because Portal de Luz was at this conference with all these old skulls and energy, and also participated in a Mayan sunrise ceremony with his own priest, he started to absorb and take on, as his initiation energy, part of the Mayan energy. So maybe the elder was feeling that the skull, because it had the energy plus it's nicely carved,
Right.
that this had to be one of their skulls, because they're very upset that some of their sacred objects were taken.
Wow.
So, and plus, you know, there was another time where I was being interviewed by Uri Geller. You know who Uri Geller is? He's known as the spoon bender, a very powerful psychic who could do all kinds of things, and tested by some advanced company in California. He had a chance to sit with Portal de Luz for half an hour. But then he did a radio interview with me after that, where he was in England and I was in Colorado, and it was a dual broadcast, internet and normal radio. As soon as we started talking about crystal skulls, his brother-in-law ran in the room and said, Yuri, the internet broadcast has died. Now, I would have normally been shocked by that, but this skull did the same thing when I was interviewed in Las Vegas one time, where they tested their video camera, just like what's being used now, working perfectly, and they were broadcasting on the radio. As soon as the interview started, the video camera shut down and would not resume until after the interview was over. So the reason I bring this up, well, of course, as a proud papa, I'm very proud of, you know, the energy that Portal de Luz has,
Right.
but it's not to say he's greater or lesser than any of the other skulls. He's always told me that he is an ambassador. He is a representative. So he's not better or greater than any other crystal skull, but just that he's giving people an opportunity to see what kind of energy they have. So he's the one that we have in our collection, which has been with me since 1999, traveled the most, seen many very old crystal skulls, been to many sacred sites. We do world peace meditations on the 13th day of each month at the 13th hour. So he's participated in every single one of those. So I guess what it is when the crystal is put into this shape, it has the ability to start to receive a variety of different frequencies of energy.
Plus, send it back, I bet.
Right, and send it out, and know when a person's in front, okay, I know what energy to give to that person, or actually can be projecting
We
different...
love you, don't affect the video.
No, he's all right. He's already learned his lesson from
I'm
those
already telepathically
early
communicating
times.
with him.
Oh, good.
Right, but I'm just saying, you know, he knows the people around and how to help, because anything that comes from nature is about service for life.
Right.
How to assist Mother Earth and all the life on her. So that's what the crystal skulls do. So, but we just have too many adventures with them.
So Joshua, I've watched very few documentaries on crystal skulls, and there's a lot of myths, there's a lot of stories going around, there's inconsistencies. Can you speak a little bit about some of those myths? Like, for example, when the 13 skulls come together, the person who has them will rule the world or whatever. I mean, there's a ton of these things.
I hope that's not one of those.
There is a lot of
there's a lot of these
stories about the 13 crystals.
So do you want to talk about it?
No, you can't.
Okay.
Okay, you just smile.
When I first started with the crystal skulls and became involved, there was a lot of discussion about a special set of 13 skulls coming together. And the indigenous people, like for example, if you were going to say who understands them the best, I would say the indigenous people do. So there is, I know, I've never talked to him directly, but through email, an elder here in British Columbia, and I can't remember the name of his tribe, he's north of Vancouver, who had visions of crystal skulls. And then when he went on the internet and he started reading about it, it was like a validation of his visions that these skulls actually existed. Wow. So through the indigenous people, they say that there could have existed many, many years ago a set of 13 that actually they call the grandmothers. Like there's, again, I'm just not good with my memory right now. Do you know the lady who wrote the book, The 13 Clan Mothers? She was a Native American, and
We'll find out.
Okay, so she talked about this in her book, was one of the first indigenous people to write about crystal skulls. And the thought or idea was that a long time ago, there were these 13 crystal skulls. In her theory, they were connected to some kind of advanced spiritual being, like a female spirit. She talked something about the moon. I can't recall exactly the theory, but what is the most powerful, and I think is going to happen again, is she said there was a lodge, like a wooden lodge, where there would be one skull in the center, and the 12 would be in a circle around. And this kind of pattern of working with skulls comes up a lot. And that when the rays of the sun came through a hole in the ceiling and reflected on the one in the center, which then broadcast an energy to the other 12, on the walls of this building, now this is going to be a long time ago, was information and scenes and knowledge of the universe and the world. Okay? So I used this story as an example as one of the legends I've heard where there are 13 skulls that come together, which then the people lose their way, so they're scattered all over the world, and then the prophecy is that when they come back, that the world will shift into a higher frequency of energy and will go into a golden age. Now that's what I believe.
Right.
Now, I don't know if there will only be one set of 13 skulls that will do this, or if there will be multiple sets, because when we look at the older skulls, the form of those skulls do not match each other. This one over here is completely different from this one over there. And then of course the form that the carvers today are making them can be also totally different than what we're finding the skulls coming out of the ground, or with the native people, or with private owners.
Because modern day technology is very sophisticated.
Right. So if you come in March, we didn't pull out this one, it's called Rosalita. It is a human-size, two-piece quartz skull made out of rose quartz, made by a master carver in China. And this skull, from the very first day we received it, which was only on October 27th, was showing from the very first day magnificent healing energy, magnificent loving energy, has affected people, and also that skull had a 17-faceted crystal gem, which again you'll be able to see this when you come, that apported, which means came out of nowhere, in her left eye while working with our friend Michael, who's a transphysical medium. But Rosalita told Katrina, and then the medium said it to me when we saw him at the end of January. I had something to do with that, so I don't know.
We'll have to come back with our medium friend.
Yes, very welcome to. The only other thing I can tell you is that for the first time, Katrina was there. I worked with another medium because I kept getting messages I'm supposed to do something like this, and there were some words I heard that I just repeated, which they said was meaningful. So And plus I know just like what I'm doing now, there's somebody right here who's helping me with what to say. He's reminding me, oh, maybe share this story, talk about this or that.
So Joshua bringing this up, these crystal skulls are tools,
right.
and they help bring out the gifts that we have.
Right. And that's what I think
So it's one of his gifts.
Right.
So, I don't know why I keep going back to this, but I get this feeling that Joshua had some and you had some, and now they've all come together. Is that valid?
Yes, our family has grown in the past 3 years for sure.
Right. Well, basically, Katrina had the little one that she showed you, and I had what?
And if you
5.
come, you will hear about it. We also have a skull that has come from a Mongolian dig.
Right.
And it tells me that it migrated from the Yucatan area. So if you come, you will hear about this.
Wow.
And its name is Tachula.
Wow. Can't wait to meet you, Tachula. Okay. Well, I've exhausted my questions. Is there any questions that you guys want to ask, or is there anything you want to share with the audience?
Yes, I have a special message.
Okay,
I have a
please.
special message. Please, now most speakers will never tell you this, okay? But I have to warn you because I don't want you to get upset with us. Please be sure, if you decide to come in the 3 days in March, that you're ready, number one, to be happier, to know what your mission or purpose is on earth, to release that which is no longer working for you, maybe get a healing, or maybe that inner child will start coming out, because that inner child is very important for 2012. So if you don't want to have change, if you're perfectly happy the way you are, then I strongly urge you, please do not come to our events, because this is what they do. We have watched it everywhere we go. It's just their energy, their collective energy is just transforming people. Now, you know, this may sound funny, and you may think I'm crazy, which I probably am anyway.
He is. You want to come.
Right.
We're all crazy.
Right. But I have to give that warning. The other thing too is we don't like to do the presentations in the normal way either. So there's going to be some entertainment. Like tonight I'm going to Abbotsford, and I'm going to pull out my guitar and play some music for the people there. And I joke around, and it's, you know, kind of fun as we're sharing the information with the stories and everything. So again, I want to apologize, but it won't be the normal type of presentation.
It'll be a lot more fun.
Private session. So that's very important that you know that. The other message, excuse me, that I'd like to give is 2012 for me represents the year of co-creation. So if there are any watchers of this video that you have an affinity for crystal skulls, you might have some crystal skulls, it's really time for all of us to start to work together. And there's also a new type of research that we're getting involved with, which maybe you may be involved with this too, I don't know, between the communication from spirit or working with the skulls and understanding what they are. So if any of those areas are of interest, you know, please feel free to contact us. Shiro's has a way how to get a hold of us. They have our websites, our email. We're your neighbors in Renton, Washington. We drove today. It was only a 2-hour drive to come up here.
And they'll come again.
Right, and we will be.
And you don't have to have a crystal skull. You can bring your crystals.
Or you may be interested in participating in these World Peace Meditations we have on the 13th. At the 13th hour of the 13th day, and we have a website that you can go to, and you can hear Katrina guide you through the meditation. Again, you don't need a crystal skull to do this. We're trying to network with other guardians of crystal skulls because we believe that when you work with them, they strongly amplify the energy. So if we've got all these people every hour of the day are focusing on sending out light and love to the whole planet, this is going to work well. We did these meditations, 27 of them, from January 1st of 2009 to January 1st of last year. Wow. And now the 1st of this year, we've started a new meditation which incorporates some new energies that Katrina works with. Right. And we've got, you know, from people very powerful. So like even right now I'm going mad. I have 4,000 friends on Facebook trying to invite the right ones to participate because, you know, if you had maybe 5,000 people do this meditation, wow, it could really send a powerful energy to the planet.
It's all about that, right? It's all about coming together, and it's all about peace and love.
Right. So part of our work, what I've been guided in, and don't ask me who talks to me because I hear a lot of things, is about trying to create bridges between the people like down in Seattle and Washington State and Vancouver, because we're so close and there are so many spiritual people in this area. And Katrina says there's a very organic energy in this area. So I think we were guided, because we were in Atlanta and we did a coast-to-coast tour all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, went through Alberta and then British Columbia and then down the west coast of the US, and she saw Washington. She said that's where we have to be. But we've always loved Canada. We love the Canadians,
close
by
to
the way.
Canada.
We wish you would invade the United States more and bring how to be friendly and cooperate and work together.
We love the Americans too.
Right, but what I'm saying is you know, it's
Don't
just...
want to invade you.
Right, but I'm just saying, come down and, you know, kind of share with the
You're so
Americans
funny.
their
Yeah.
friendliness, because that's what we appreciate. It's like every time you come into Canada, the energy is much more relaxed, everybody's friendly, helping each other. Maybe there's some things we don't know about Canada, but the people are great. So if you feel inspired, invade America with your friendliness, please. Okay, so
Thank you. Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joshua.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.